August 15th, 2025 Daily Bread. Passage Acts chapter 7, verse 17 to verse 38. Key verse 34. Title, God called Moses. As the time drew near for God to fulfill his promise to Abraham, the number of our people in Egypt had greatly increased. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. He dealt treacherously with our people and oppressed our ancestors by forcing them to throw out their newborn babies so that they would die. At that time Moses was born, and he was no ordinary child. For 3 months he was cared for by his family. When he was placed outside, Pharaoh's daughter took him and brought him up as her own son. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. When Moses was 40 years old, he decided to visit his own people, the Israelites. He saw one of them being mistreated by an Egyptian, so he went to his defense and avenged him by killing the Egyptian. Moses thought that his own people would realize that God was using him to rescue them, but they did not. The next day Moses came upon 2 Israelites who were fighting. He tried to reconcile them by saying, "Men, you are brothers. Why do you want to hurt each other?" But the man who was mistreating the other pushed Moses aside and said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" When Moses heard this, he fled to Midian, where he settled as a foreigner and had 2 sons. After 40 years had passed, an angel appeared to Moses in the flames of a burning bush in the desert near Mount Sinai. When he saw this, he was amazed at the sight. As he went over to get a closer look, he heard the Lord say, "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Moses trembled with fear and did not dare to look. Then the Lord said to him, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I have indeed seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their groaning and have come down to set them free. Now come, I will send you back to Egypt." This is the same Moses they had rejected with the words, "Who made you ruler and judge?" He was sent to be their ruler and deliverer by God himself, through the angel who appeared to him in the bush. He led them out of Egypt and performed wonders and signs in Egypt, at the Red Sea, and for 40 years in the wilderness. This is the Moses who told the Israelites, "God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your own people." He was in the assembly in the wilderness, with the angel who spoke to him on Mount Sinai, and with our ancestors, and he received living words to pass on to us. Daily Bread Message. God used cruel oppression to give the slave people a longing to leave Egypt. Then God prepared a shepherd to lead them out. Because of his parents' faith, the infant Moses survived the genocide, and by God's grace received a palace education. But his people did not accept Prince Moses' leadership. Because of his rash action, he was forced to live in exile in Midian, as a shepherd of his father-in-law's sheep. God trained Moses to grow as a shepherd. After 4 decades, Moses heard God's voice speaking to him from a burning bush. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob met him on holy ground and gave him a mission to go back to Egypt and be the ruler and deliverer of the people who had rejected him. Moses led them out of Egypt, cared for them in the desert for 40 years, taught them God's words, and pointed them to Christ. Is God training you in a special way? Are you encountering him on holy ground, or living in despair that you failed in the past? Now is the day to hear his calling and lead others out of slavery to sin and point them to Christ. Prayer. Father, raise up shepherds and spiritual leaders for our times who follow your calling and lead others to Christ. One word, God trains and calls his servants for his salvation purpose.